Hey guys, Silverbolt here, back again with another action figure review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy, whatever the subline is called. I know the last one was Legacy Evolution. Not 100% sure what this one is called, but at the end of the day, today I'm going to be taking a look at good old Silverbolt from Beast Wars, specifically Beast Wars Fusors, or Fusion, whatever you want to call it. This, of course, is brought to us by the fine folks over at Hasbro, and is quite possibly, for me, one of the contenders for Figure of the Year, at least from the Transformers line anyways. I really like the Silverbolt character from Beast Wars. You know, a chivalrous knight-like Maximal that turns into, well, fusion of a wolf and an eagle. And if that's not metal as fuck, I don't know what is. So, with that being said, let's cut right to the chase and get into the meat and taters of this review and take a look, see at all Silverbolt has to offer in terms of accessories. Starting off with his two swords here. This is actually all he comes with, but, you know, makes sense for the character. This is what the vintage one had. I do not have a vintage Silverbolt. Would very much like one, though, despite the fact we got this new one here that is obviously a little better, not gonna lie. And the cool thing with these swords is you can actually, for starters, you can dual wield them, like so. There you go. And he can chop suey all the Predacons that stand in his way, or you can snap them onto the wings. The very outer part of the wing has this little tab here. All you gotta do is line that up, and you basically get another feather out of that, and that is pretty cool. Personally, I will probably be keeping mine that way, except for the final thoughts shot, of course. Open that up. There we go. So, looking pretty spiffy with those back there. That said, in the way of Silverbolt's articulation, he has a single ball peg in the head, but you do get some rotation out of that. Not really any tilt, but you do get some up and down. His shoulders can go out to the side. They do rotate forward and back. He can kick the camera. He does have a bicep swivel up there. And then he does have a single elbow, which you can get more out of, but you're going to dislocate this back leg, and you're going to have to, I guess, deal with that. Would be nice if it folded up some more, but that's as far as that's gonna go, so probably best just to not even use that. He does have a waist twist, which is surprising because he's got a lot of business going on here. He's got the skirt on the back and the front, or the front and the back, excuse me. He's got wrist swivel, which is something we don't see often with some Transformer releases. I don't know why, but you know, he does have T-jointed hips, so he can do the splits no problem. He can kick forward, he can kick back a little bit. He does have a thigh swivel. He's got a single jointed knee, which is kind of loose, but not really in the sense that it's gonna bother me. Only if you keep him posed is it gonna be loose. It does lock into place in the neutral position, but once you unlock it, it is not as tight as it is, which is very odd. And then he does have some pretty decent ankle tilt and hinge down there. And he's got the ports in the bottom of his feet, in case you wanted to toss him on a stand. I will say, in Beast mode, he does have this little port here on the underside of his kind of front skirt overlay piece, whatever you want to call it, in a robot mode. I'm not sure if this is hollowed out, so you can put a flight stand in there, but I remember back in the day, like, say around the Dark of the Moon era, Transformers Prime era, they used to put little ports for flight stands on the underside or the posterior of a lot of Transformer figures, so you could rig them up on a flight stand. I want to say a Figma stand. So I'm not sure if that's what this is, or if this is just not even hollowed out. I can't even tell because it's such a tiny little port, but that's kind of interesting. He does have some hinges back here for the wings, so you can fold them in at the base and then back out. He does have the hinge up here, and then they do rotate up here. I will say they are not the tightest things in the world, but nothing that's going to bother me really. I think it's fine. It stays in place for me, and that's all I ask for. Oh, and he's got this cool kind of arc reactor gem thingy in his belly there. So that is pretty freaking spiffy. Yeah, I like this figure. I like him quite a bit. Silverbolt's probably second to Optimus Primal and Dinobot as far as my favorite Maximals go, just because I like the character. I would say Dinobot's probably the most interesting character out of the whole series, but the Dinobot figure we got, I don't think was the strongest. I would say of all the Maximals we've gotten, Optimus Primal's still my favorite. Tigatron was really well executed. And Airazor was really well executed. You know, Cheetor's just Cheetor. They recycled the heck out of that mold. And trying to think, Rhinox was kind of meh. I will say the Thrilling 30 Rhinox was better, but we don't have any other Silverbolts to compare good old Silverbolt to. So, you know, if you don't have an original Silverbolt, then this is really your only option. That said, this review would not be complete, not only without the two regulars for size comparisons, but let's bring in Silverbolt's Bay, who's already kind of dressing kind of skimpy here with her cheetah print breastises. But there he is with the Black Arachnia with the evil mutant head. And this is actually the Black Arachnia I use with my Predacons. I will probably use the other Black Arachnia, the main, you know, look for her version, the first version, with Silverbolt and the Maximals, because, you know, I got options, man. Also, shout out to my good buddy Evil Villain for hooking up this Black Arachnia figure. Let me know if you want a review of this version of Black Arachnia. It is just a repaint, but, again, it does have that Coolio, almost Darth Vader looking mutant head there. So moving him back in, let's bring in our two regulars here. Got the Mythic Legion's Billith right there, and the infamous 11 Spawn. 11 Spawn. Wow, that was a distressed Mr. Mackey if I ever heard one. But of course, Spawn towers over everyone. You know, Transformers have never been like the biggest figures in my collection, to be honest with you, as far as height goes, unless you get like a leader class or something, you know, pretty off the chain like that. And even then, some leader classes are still not as tall as some 7-inch figures that cost $20. So just feels like things are getting smaller, but the prices are not. Sad but true, for a Metallica reference for you guys out there. So with that being said, I think it is time now that we move right along and wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and aside from a few shortcomings in terms of articulation, because truth be told, as I was posing good old Silverbolt here for this final thoughts shot, I realized, yeah, his ankle articulation is good, but he doesn't get a whole lot of forward, which is kind of interesting. But other than that, I can pretty much look past that because, as I mentioned before, he is definitely going to be a contender for one of my figures of the year. I really like this figure, despite its shortcomings, which when we get into beast mode, you'll see more of that. But at the end of the day, I don't keep my figures posed other than for these videos, and I don't keep my Transformers in alt mode other than for these videos. So, you know, if it's a problem that doesn't affect me directly, I tend to just kind of blow it off, you know? So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and before we wrap this thing up, why don't we take a closer look at good old Silverbolt in his beast mode. And as promised, here's a closer look at good old Silverbolt in his, for lack of a better term, metal as fuck alt mode. I mean, he's a fusion between a wolf and an eagle. And if you ask me, they should have just went for the low-hanging fruit and merged a lion and an eagle and gave him a straight-up Griffin alt mode, because aside from not having the lion's head and tail, this thing is pretty much a griffin, and that makes a lot of sense for a medieval character like Silverbolt, who is, of course, a knight. So taking a closer look at him, I will tell you though, I'm not getting a lot of medieval knight vibes from this alt mode. I'm getting more Native American vibes because of the eagle, right down to the tail feathers, and the wolf. So again, if they merged a lion and an eagle, it'd be a little bit more medieval, if you ask me. But as far as articulation goes, his jaw will actually open and close here. And they were nice enough to give you a ledge to push down on so you can actually get that thing to open, so I do appreciate that. The wings are on hinge joints, and mine aren't too loose, thankfully. They do rotate up here as well, but they do also have a tighter hinge joint right here. I think that's mostly for transformation. I might even have these popped up a little bit just to have the wings positioned the way I like. That said, he does have some articulation in the feet here, which don't appear to sit flush on the ground. I don't know what's up with that. Everything seems to be in order. I don't think I have two of the same part or anything, but it doesn't sit the flushest to the surface, so that's a little weird. That said, he does have a little bit of articulation here, so you can bend that. And if you unpeg some things like this, you get like a full shoulder joint with a bicep twist. That's kind of nice. And then if you unpeg the hind legs, you do get a ball joint out of that. But really you just get this hinge here, and really it's pretty much meant to stay as it is, unlike the Cheetor, Tigatron molds, or even the Ravage mold. You don't get as much play in this alt mode, but really I don't collect Transformers to display them in alt mode. I almost always display them in robot mode unless there's some kind of weird space and or storage reason I have to transform them. This guy is going to be proudly displayed in his badass medieval warrior robot mode, so it doesn't really bother me that his alt mode's kind of jank looking, and it's not going to affect his figure of the year eligibility, because last I checked, Optimus Primal made my top, was it 5 of whatever year he came out, and his alt mode had some questionable areas in it as well. That said, this area right here is probably the most questionable, because these tail feathers should probably stick out a lot more, and I think if these legs could shift forward a bit, that would omit that problem. And he's got his fist sticking out of his bump kiss there. So, a little weird, not gonna lie. Could have been better, yes. I think there's enough engineering nowadays for Transformers figures to get better alt modes, but let's face it, this was a $35 figure, not a however much a Masterpiece costs. So I'm sure if they ever do a Masterpiece of this guy, which imagine that, right? I mean, they have been doing Beast Wars, but I don't think they've gotten this deep yet. But imagine if they do that, the alt mode will probably be far superior to this one, or possibly even the same, because I've heard mixed feelings about Masterpiece figures compared to what Hasbro and Takara Tomy are doing for the main line. So, some food for thought there. But with that being said, once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.